The mentor's dilemma is the dilemma we all face when providing mentees with critical feedback. It's feedback that's necessary, but can affect our mentees' confidence and motivation. We summarize here an experimental study by Cohen and colleagues that shows that the way we provide this critical feedback can have a substantial impact, especially for underrepresented mentees, on their motivation and perception of fairness. This is a study in social psychology in which the recruited students were Black and white undergraduates at Stanford who had not taken directly relevant coursework. The task was a writing task in which students were asked to write a letter of recommendation for their favorite teacher. The incentive to do well in the task was that students were led to believe that the very best letters might be published in an education journal. At the end of the writing session, their photo was taken, ostensibly because the photo would be included in a publication. But the real goal was that students, who were asked to staple their photo to the writing sample, would have some awareness that their race would be known to the reviewer. Trained reviewers commented on the letters, and students returned a week later to get the reviews. Each was put in one of three feedback conditions: unbuffered critique, positively buffered critique, and a critique that both appealed to high standards and gave students assurance that they could meet those standards. All students, regardless of condition, received handwritten feedback that included about 8 positive and negative comments signed by Gardner Lindsay, a name that was judged to be Caucasian. Students in the unbuffered condition received nothing more. Students in the positive buffered condition got additional feedback, telling them that they had done a nice job and that the letter made some good points. Students in the most supportive feedback condition were told that the reviewer was providing them honest feedback that the current sample didn't yet meet their high standards, but they were confident the student could indeed meet them. Students read the results and then completed a survey of their reactions to the review. Most importantly, they were asked to rate their motivation to revise and to rate their perception of bias on the part of the reviewer. There were no differences in ratings between men and women. There were, though, striking differences between Black and white students' ratings. Consider first perception of reviewer bias. In the unbuffered and positive buffered conditions, the condition circled in red, Black students rated the reviewer as more biased than white students did. But in the condition that invoked high standards and assured students they could meet those standards, the condition circled in blue, the relative rankings reversed. Now Black students rated the reviewer as slightly less biased than the white students did. We see a roughly similar pattern in students' motivation to revise. In the unbuffered condition, circled in red, Black students were less motivated to revise than white students. However, their motivation increased to the point of being not statistically different from white students in the more positive feedback conditions. To get a better sense of the relative contributions of invoking high standards and assuring students could meet them, Cohen and colleagues did a follow-up using the same basic design, except they replaced the positive feedback condition with a condition in which high standards were invoked without reassuring students about their ability. For this follow-up, when we consider perception of bias, we see that the two conditions that appeal to high standards group together. Black students perceive more bias than white students in the unbuffered condition, circled in red, but this pattern disappears in both conditions that appeal to high standards. Task motivation, though, shows a different pattern for the two high standards condition. If students aren't reassured that they can meet the high standards, it's a middle condition, then just as in the unbuffered condition, Black students are less motivated than the white students to revise. So we learned from this study that if students feel their work is being judged through the lens of a stereotype rather than on its own merits, the potential for a negative response to feedback goes up. But we also learn how to avoid this negative response for all students, regardless of their group membership. We learn that when providing critical feedback, the wise mentor invokes high standards while at the same time conveying their beliefs in the student's ability to meet them.